You're listening to Community Broadband Radio Live on Facebook. And, Real Talk is a very, very special place. Open dialogue, lots of questions. You, the citizens, get to ask questions and participate. There is beauty in that. Please get involved with us today. We're looking forward to anything and everything you want to ask and talk about. But community broadband is all about the community and keeping things moving forward, and we're going to do exactly that. Um, we've got a very special guest in the house, one of our, I guess, first time ever on the show. And the live streaming is never going to be the same after Demetrius has his way with people on Real Talk and really enlightens us along the trail. So welcome, Demetrius, and give a quick intro of who you are.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor for me to be on your show, and I'm open to any questions. I'm a newly elected commissioner, one of those two, in this past November, and this is my first time to be at any political office or such positions as this. So I'm very excited. I've been a resident of our city, of our great city, for the past almost 6 years. It's a great city. I love to live here, and I enjoy being commissioner, although it has some challenges. I can tell you that. But it's part of life, isn't it?
It is. It is. So tell us some of the challenges that you've been facing.
Well, challenges. Well, first is the learning curve I have to go through, which is amazing. And to be honest, when I got elected, I was hoping I'll get a job description of some sort, but
That didn't work, did it?
No, there's no job description. And when I met with our city interim attorney, Michael Golan, he told me the same thing. There's nothing for you to be specifically and be that is required of you. And he said, it's really up to you how much you want to be invested in your position and how much work you want to do for the citizen. And he said, you don't even have to attend the meetings, but it will be up to your constituents to elect you for the future term if you decide to run. So it's the challenge is to have a learning curve that I've been part of this position, part of the one of the 5 positions of the city board. My challenge is specifically, I get questions from average citizen from why is my neighbor doing this, or why is the other neighbor doing that to me, to complex issues that we have to face as a commission board, as far as the accountability, financial struggles of our city, and so on. So it's from this much to this big challenges.
Is it different than you thought dealing with the public as a commissioner?
I did anticipate some level of complexity, but not to that extent. But I've tried to answer every email, every phone call. If I missed, I apologize in advance. I usually go back again and check my emails because I like to save my emails. But it is different in the way that, that the buck stops with commission. So any issue, any small issue, any big issue, people go to the commissioners, and they expect us to answer them, be accountable to them, and educate them, and so on. So it is rewarding in a way, but it's a challenging.
So what do you think as far as like the citizens need to hear? What is the one thing that you've learned now as a newly elected official? What is the one thing that you realize that you didn't realize as like, and I said this to you beforehand, Joe Citizen?
Well, I've learned this, that any citizen that approaches me or expects me to do anything, he deserves that, because whether he voted for me or not, I represent that citizen or those citizens in our city. So I take it very seriously to communicate with my constituents, answer them any questions they might have, or they ask me directly by email or phone calls. Um, so it is a big step of responsibility to be accountable, even in small things. So, and I take it seriously.
So as you go through this educational process, when you're sitting on the dais, what's your mindset now compared to when you were in the audience and participating? There's a drastic difference between the being in the audience and participating that way and actually being on the dais, because when you're in the crowd and you're able to speak freely on one certain topic, one certain direction, being on the dais is a little different, isn't it?
Oh yes, yes. And when I was on the other side, I wish I could have a efficient communication channels of communication where I could communicate with the commissioners on the dais. Well, right now I'm on the other side, so it is a little bit of a challenge, because there's a policies that we listen to the public comments, but we cannot engage into actual discussion with the people who comment on topics we are discussing. But one thing it is a bit frustrating is because when we get any agenda item that we have questions on, we do agenda briefings, right? So we devolve ourselves into the topic. We educate ourselves. We look into all the details. Public doesn't see that. So when they come to the meeting, they can only see us voting yes, no, and a short time of discussion. But they don't know that a lot of it has been done behind the scenes, that we discussed this. It was presented to the commission on an individual basis due to the sunshine law. But that doesn't mean that we don't listen to the public. Doesn't mean that we don't engage in the discussion. So it's a little bit of a challenge, because I'm on the other side, and I wanted the public to be more enlightened on any agenda item, but it's hard, because if they do want to be more involved, they have to go in advance and study the agenda, each and that agenda items, or that particular agenda item that they have concerns with. So
Do you feel like you look at the topics differently now that you're and I don't want to say you weren't educated before, but you had a different avenue of insight. Now you're getting all the insight from leadership within the city, and you're able to ask certain questions and get different opinions on topic. Do you feel like that's different now? You are handling things different than you were before you got elected?
oh yes, to some extent, absolutely, because you know as a public, on the other side, I did not know the processes of things, how it's done. For example, bidding process, procurement process, all of those things, and there are federal guidelines, there are state guidelines of how the city has to be engaged in those steps. And one thing I can tell you, any process is some sort of a bureaucracy, because there's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So when average citizen looks at, say, hey, why don't you fix this? it doesn't work this way. It doesn't work that quickly. It's a process. So, and you and I, we know that process takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because we were talking before this, but and we usually don't, hold a long, lengthy conversation beforehand. But when you are going through a a process that you want to go quicker, sometimes the more educated you are on the processes, that changes your trajectory of the conversations and your mindset. Do you feel like that's kind of where you're at with a lot of this stuff?
Oh yes, yes, yes. For example, bidding process or even design process of any project takes months, if not years. You know, I was always, and I'm still very passionate about the warm mineral springs. And I always thought to myself, why does it take so long? Why can't they fix things? Why can't they do it? It's been like this for years and years, and it's true. It's been like this for years and years, but we do not see the all the details behind the scenes. For example, some all of those buildings are deemed to be uh, historically protected, so we cannot demolish them. So that's one thing. Then getting a design, architectural design, is about a year to 2 years. So once I got elected, I got to the city manager and I asked him, how can we speed up the process? He said, it is what it is. It's been in design process and it's going to be up to 2 years. So we as a public did not know this, but once you are part of the commission, you get to learn all these details.
So, and I'm going to ask this because it plays out across the board, and I know in your heart, I know where your heart was when you ran and where you're at today. You are for a better city. I know your perspective is not changed, but the perspective of how things are done has changed. So I want to ask you this, and it goes along the lines with trust of the system, because you have to trust the system now that you've learned it, because one commissioner can't change that system. You have to kind of play within the rules, right?
Correct. Yes, and the commission board consists of 5 commissioners, and in order to achieve anything, it has to be by the majority, which means 3 or more commissioners. Uh, so that's one thing. Another thing is I ran and I told the people in my campaign, I do not have any political agenda. I do not have any personal agenda. I ran to make the city better, to improve the city, which is a great city, um, and I want to improve the communication channels between the citizens and the commission board. But you're 100% correct. There are some processes and some policies and rules and regulations of how we achieve things. And by no means I can do anything I want. I mean, it doesn't happen that way.
Correct.
The charter design was designed to be that the city is governed by the commission board, and the commission board is governed by the majority. So if I answer your question.
You did, and I want to send a special shout out real quick. Jackie Ford, thanks for liking, and anybody else who's gonna like this page, I'll definitely mention you. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. But Jackie is a probably a 20-year friend, so nice to see her like on the page. But we hear all kinds of language during election periods, and we had it during yours, and it wasn't directed at anyone or any sources. But now that you've been through this, and you've had to go through, and I've talked to David as he's been on the show before you. So the overview of how a commissioner comes in and what develops and what changes. That's normal. And you didn't have anything different experience wise than he had. It's kind of all structured the same way. Get in, do as much as you want to do, work at your own pace, and then filter in. But do you trust the system that is in play with the city now when you hold conversations with staff and leadership? Do you feel different now that you've gotten to sit down with them one on one and have like an open discussion?
Yes, it's a good question. To be honest, the system is good that it's in a place, because if there's no system, there's no structure, right? So
Right.
the structure has to be in, and whether we like it or not. And like I said, I don't have any personal agenda. I don't have any ambitious goals in my position. I just simply ran to promote the whole city's interests, especially quality of life. I'm very concerned about that, and effective channels of communication between the citizens and the commission board. But as I talk to the staff, and I've done some tours of almost every department, and I could see the sincerity of each department and directors, that they are want to make the city a better place.
Mhm.
So, and that's the ultimate goal for everybody else that is in the city structure. So I do believe that it is a good system. What's not good is, again, like we talked about, that it takes time to achieve anything.
Yeah.
And that's normal. It's part of our growth, so to speak. you know when we have a child, and he's born, and like my wife is pregnant now, so
Congrats.
thank you. So that child is born, right? It doesn't get to be 20 years of age right away. It takes time for him or for her to progress and grow. Similar with the city structure. And I want to make this clear. There is so much room for improvement on any level, even in our personal growth, that we have to, achieve something that we're not there. And there are problems within our city, like anybody can tell you that with any municipality or city there are problems. And what is the problem is just the difference between the state we're in and the state we want to be, and that distance between those two is that problem. So problem is not always a bad thing, it's just the difference where we want to be. And it takes time, it takes effort, it matures us, it makes us a better individuals, and makes us as a better city. So yes, to answer your question, yes, the system is there, the structure is there, whether we like it or not. It has to be improved, obviously. That's why the commission, individual commissioner is being elected. And I like that there are terms now that only 2 times each commissioner can serve, to bring better input, to bring better improvement in the process. So, and that's where I find myself. I want to make things better.
We really need that to be advanced to the federal government. I like a term limit myself, but now that we've done the only part of this show that's going to be related to the federal government, on the local side, there's a we just went through a voting where everything failed. Do you look at that as a failure of the city, or is that more of a still an educational process for people to understand what happens behind the scenes to make things happen financially in the city?
I think it goes both ways. I'm sure there were very few people questioning the need of each item that was presented on May 13th, with the exception of changing of a city charter for the city attorney and city clerk. That was not too much important, but I voted yes to put that question on the referendum because I felt it was appropriate to ask the people, because we are lacking. We don't have a city attorney now, as you were aware. Our city attorney left right before I was elected, so we have a city attorney that is interim. He's only temporary, so we're going to be looking for the full-time position for the city attorney, and that was not so much important. Although, far it be from me to go against the will of the people, So
Right.
I voted for that item to be put on the referendum. I felt that it was a best way to save money, to hire someone within in-house, um, within the organization that is our city, um, for number of reasons. He's so familiar with the processes of our city, or all the cases, and he's a great guy. Michael's a great guy, and it would save a lot of money for the city. He just he lives just outside of the city limits,
Right.
um, and for whatever personal reasons, he could not move to the city. And for people who are watching us, they might not know this, but prior 2018, there was no residency requirement for the city clerk and the city attorney. So uh, we felt that it was good to ask people, so we asked. But the rest of the questions, I do sincerely believe, that there were very few people questioning the need for the city to have those questions to be put on a ballot. We can go one by one, if you want.
We can, but I want to go back to a question or a comment that Robin, hi, Robin. She said one of the major factors on the referendum, as far as failing, is because there is still a lack of trust. Do you we were on that topic. That's why I diverted back to this. And great question, Robin. But as far as that goes, I think trust comes with a level of education too. Um, and I think those two, if we don't talk about them together, um, I think what we talked about at the beginning of the show and your transition, David's transition, all of the past commissioners, when they came on, they didn't go to commissioner school. They all had to transition, and the citizens. I'm not going to give them credit because they work all the time, because so do I, and so does Robin, and so Chuck. I don't know what Chuck English does, but he's probably going to comment here shortly. But I do know he drinks a mean cup of coffee. But no, the funny thing is that we all go through this cycle of we're going to go vote, and sometimes I think we don't truly realize, whether it's lack of trust, lack of education, we don't realize how we're voting and what we're voting for, because our lives are different. Our lives are chaotic. Things are happening. Just as you said, you had one vision as a citizen, but when you got on the dais and you got the whole gamut thrown at you, things had to adjust in your mindset. That doesn't happen to Joe Citizen. So what would you, from your point of view now, because you're new at being a commissioner and you've gone through that transition, what would you encourage people to do to gain trust?
Well, I do believe that participation and being involved with the city dealings is the priority. To first, like you said, to gain trust, it comes with education. So I'm sure there's some disconnect between the citizens and the city leadership on some levels, to some extent, and that goes for every organization, for every political organization, any company, any type of organization. But I do believe that, like I said before, not many people questioned the need of our city, especially with the first question, um, the emergency. And
That's a fact.
yes, and let's be honest and candid about this question, because that the similar question was presented on the ballot in November. But what a lot of people don't realize, the November's question was compounded or compiled in two questions at least. Um, right now, the city commission, they separated the emergency uh, just as a direct result of emergency or disaster, and it has to be declared, and that's it, nothing less, nothing more. And God forbid we're gonna have another hurricane, but if we have two back to back, the city is gonna be in trouble. Although we do maintain 20% in our fund to combat that emergency relief. But from what I remember, when we had Ian, we spent over $65 million in the debris removal, just the debris removal alone. So if we have another back-to-back storm, we're not going to be able to serve our citizens or service our city. And I'm a little bit disappointed, but that's the reality, that the people voted that question down. And just recently, I looked up an article that FEMA, they're preparing. They sent out. They actually, there was an article that they are cutting the reimbursements by 50%. So can you imagine that if we spent 70 or 80 million dollars on debris removal and we only get 40 back? That's going to be a perfect storm before the actual storm. So that's going to be a big problem. And I have a feeling that, like Robin mentioned, some people voted just to vote. They voted no just to vote no. And I do not agree to this strategy, because it's not good for the entire city.
It isn't, and I'm going to tell you, I love Robin's comments and questions and stuff, but this trust thing, it has different levels to it too. I'm going to say this, and you can talk about it if you want to, but there are groups of people in every city that are the throwers of stones and doubt and mistrust, and they do it all the time. And then along comes a vote that they actually agree with, in principle, everything, and because they've sown so much doubt, and they don't have any credibility with anybody, and the little bit of credibility that they have goes to the citizen base that they follow. And I say that to you because it's really easy for a citizen who isn't for anything anytime to do that. It's such an easy tool. And they are a tool. They really are, in the wrong way, because there are essential things that every community needs. And I think when you sabotage the situation with a demeaning nature, I think that's a bad thing. I think you can disagree. I think you don't, before you were a citizen, I don't think you were casting stones and wanting the demise or mistrust to be thrown out there. I think you were a good guy before, and I think you're a good guy now. And I think that the reason I asked that question earlier is that transition for you couldn't have been easy to understand. You've got a one point of view for anyone, even myself, to go through that process of transition into the huge responsibility of not looking single-handedly at one topic, but opening the book and taking in the whole book. That is the project. And if you go through them one at a time, the major one for me isn't the police station, although I would have loved to have had it. It is truly the funding for an emergency situation. And by the way, you just educated the public a little bit more on what we're going to face if we do get double storm. And
Yes.
if you get a double storm, that funding didn't come right away. That funding took a couple years to get paid back. And that's what the citizens who work every day don't know, is that funding that we had in our coffer was spent. And we were just waiting for it to come back. And in the meantime, we actually had a couple scenarios where we could have had another storm hit. That's the fear factor of what we knew we could be hit with, that if it happened again today, we would not be prepared for it. Am I correct on that?
Oh, yes. Just to go back to your earlier comment or beginning of your comments, personally, I want to avoid all the drama. I'm not one of those that love, talking behind the back, or I'm not one of those drama people.
Yeah.
I'm one of those that I want the work to get done, to solve the issues, to solve the problem. And like I said, the problem is not necessarily a bad thing. The problem is just the difference between the state where we are at now and the state where we want to be. So that distance it's called, between the two is called the problem. So problem solving is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. Or having a problem is not a bad thing. But in case of this emergency funding, I was not thoroughly convinced in November, and you probably can guess which way I voted in November, because it was for any capital improvement project. But this specific debt issuance to respond to declared emergency or disaster was designed specifically for the benefit of the city, nothing less, nothing more. And we just have to face the consequences of this vote on the specific question, because we have to find out the ways how to make up, or how do we solve that now that we cannot borrow. And I want to be very candid and direct about this question, because a lot of people said, oh, it doesn't specify the ceiling of your debt or asking for the amount, and that means you can borrow whatever you want and for whatever you want. Some citizens said that we still earn I think it's 4 years already after Ian, and
Yep.
we still have that declaration of emergency being extended on and on and on and on. Well, the reason that it's being extended so we can get the funding to be reimbursed by FEMA, because it takes years to get reimbursed. But right now, we're not going to be able to take advantage of interest-free loans or complete loans that can be forgiven if we borrow from the federal government or the state, for that matter. So now I'm a little bit disappointed that this, because the message we got from the voters from November, that if we separate two questions separately and not combine the emergency and capital improvement projects, that vote can be, that question may be voted yes. But the other thing is I want to mention is I do not truly agree that that this referendum represented the entire city, and simply because it's a mid-cycle or mid-year election, not many people knew about this. or not many people could be participating in that. So if we had it on a general election or like a November election, I
Yep.
think we could get this question passed easily because it's specifically separated for the emergency only, and there would be a debt or there would be a ceiling of what we can borrow. Um, Stuff like this that they can borrow whatever they want. Um, if I want to go and borrow whatever I want, I can't. The bank or whatever that lending institution can only lend me so much based on my income.
True.
So it doesn't mean that we will borrow unlimited amount of money. That doesn't happen.
So I'm gonna
So
I'm gonna go back here a minute, because all of the stuff that you just said, did you realize that not while you were running, because you were getting information thrown at you too during that time, but prior to that, when you were before you decided to run, and you were Joe Citizen, were you in the know of all the debt and all the transition and all the things that had to be followed rule wise to get the reimbursement? Where none of us were, unless you were asked those questions. The average citizen isn't going to know those things.
absolutely, I didn't know it takes years to get reimbursed from FEMA. I would say maybe 6 to 12 months, but you know, one citizen in particular, uh, they said, or she or he said that, because of declaration of emergencies being extended, that means the city can borrow money on a continuous basis.
Right.
Well, that's not true, because it would be specifically declared. It says, if I can find it, it has to be declared by the federal or state or local. And correct, we can declare emergency or state of emergency, but it has to be emergency. If the emergency passed, the actual emergency is gone, we can't declare emergency, because there are state actually and federal regulations that specifically contain the language and the timing of declared emergency. That doesn't mean that we can declare another emergency if the administrative emergency is being extended on and on and on and on. I mean, we can't just go and vote and declare emergency so we can borrow indefinitely. No, that doesn't work either. So absolutely, I was not aware of those intricate details, but I've tried to learn more and more when I was when I was just on the other side. And it takes time to get educated.
It does.
But I do believe that the referendum failure did not represent the entire city. Although I do completely respect, the voters and what they did, but that doesn't mean that I feel that it's a representation of the entire city. And go ahead.
So we can hash over how the city and the citizens voted. From this point forward, we have to look at things differently. It's kind of been through a double whammy with two votes, together and separate, and then all the other things that are there. With your brand new, clear cut education into the system, where do you feel we are now today, as far as what the citizens really need to know about the changes that you guys are going to have to make now, because that funding and those sources all are gone, and those projects, now they're not buried, but there's now it's different. Now the game changes. And I don't think people are aware that just because you say no doesn't mean the game doesn't change, because there's still needs, and there's definite need that has to be addressed. How do you feel that's going to go as a new commissioner?
Oh, it's going to be hard. I do believe it's going to be really hard, and not hard just for the commission board, but for the entire city. And like you said, the need or the needs did not go away. And a lot of people said that, hey, they snuck this election into the mid cycle. Uh, but what we were trying to do is to protect the city from another season of hurricanes. We have 2 more years before we get to 2026.
Yeah.
So we can have a double uh, uh, emergency situation, and it's going to be hard, simply because we're just not going to be as proactive as we could, removing the debris, and ultimately they're going to call the commissioners and say, why is it taking so long to remove the trees, or the damages or the debris from the damages. So it's going to be hard, because we're going to have to come up with additional funding, and that means something has to be sacrificed, or something has to be reduced as far as the services. So that's going to be a big challenge for the commission. The other one I want to talk about is the transfer station.
Big mistake.
It's been on my heart for many months.
Yep. Big mistake.
As a quality of life guy and fiscally responsible, the transfer station would pay it for itself. I mean, if we borrow those money, it doesn't mean that we're going to be spending those money. That would be put back into the construction of transfer station, and immediately it would be recouped and would be paying for itself. And
that's a proven fact.
Oh yeah, yes.
It's proven. We already did it.
Yes, and as probably not many people know, but the city of Northport is one of the leading cities, if not the leading city in the state, on our recycling program. We save about $50 a ton by having 2 recycling bins in our city system. So we have a blue bin and the brown bin.
Yep.
Because we're separating those, we save $50 a ton, and that's a lot of money. Venice doesn't have it. I mean, Sarasota. I don't know any other cities that have that. And transfer station would be much more facilitating those savings into the future. And like I said, when I ran, and when I voted for the transfer station to be put on the ballot, I don't have any personal agenda. I don't have any political agenda, but it would be a big saving for the city. And I'm really disappointed, to say the least, that it didn't pass. And transfer station's been in works since 2014, and we're in 2025, and we're still talking about this transfer station. What's going to happen? I mean, they're going to have to raise some fees for solid waste, because it takes each truck to go to Sarasota.
Yep.
And just one truck takes 3 hours. That means more overtime, more wear and tear, and we need more trucks for that purpose. So I hate to say it, but it's not happening. But if it's gonna happen, how else do we fund the need of our city?
You tax us.
And I'm really against taxation. But
Me too.
but if we have to serve as our citizens, I mean, how else do we do it? So unfortunately, like I said, um, some people, if not a lot of people, voted no just to vote no, and I do respect the voters. How do we go to fix the mistrust? Or I'm all for accountability. Going back to
So,
Robert's question,
yep.
how
Well,
do we
here, go ahead.
how do we fix that? Um, I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. I'm trying to ask as many questions as possible, even on the dais, even on publicly, even though I know the answers that I asked on my one-on-one or agenda briefing, and I know the answer. I still ask questions on the dais so the citizens can hear me, that I'm accountable. So I'm trying to restore the trust. Um, if there's any trust, how do we do that practically? I would like to know more from the citizens, specifically what they mean by that. Um,
Well,
I've
here's the thing, though. I want to stay there for a second because I understand the mistrust thing. So if it was totally mistrust, just sewn in mistrust, I would be okay with that, but it's not. It's just not that. It's they didn't understand what the topics were because this particular topic by itself, take it away, just talk about this one topic. If there was there's no expenditure there on not recouping the money. It is we proved it. We actually already do it. This is something we brag about that we already have in play. So this wasn't something of, oh, we just need a new building. Oh, we need to do this. This was a proven fact. And the lack of education to the citizenry or from the citizens to be in the know. I'm not going, I refuse to play the game of pointing the fingers at the city for not doing more. Do I think we always can do more? Yes. I think the onus has to be put back on the citizens too. You can't just take it one-sided. The citizens have to be responsible enough to understand what they're voting for and how it's going to affect their pocketbook. And if they were not happy with some of the taxation that was coming from other things, this one in particular, if they did an ounce worth of information, there are no check marks other than positives when you look at fiscal responsibility across the board. So while I will say everybody voted no and we don't have it anymore, and I get it, and the voting, it went the way it did, but it went the way that it did because the truth is we have got to wake our citizens up to be more involved. We have a great communications team. There are some people out there that want our communications team to be reduced. We need more. We don't need less. We need more communication because nobody's paying attention to the ones we have. And it's not because they're not trying to get the word out. You are actively trying to get the word out to the citizens you're reaching. You're still taking these phone calls. You're still doing all these things. The one thing with a city of 100,000 or close to 100,000 now is we don't have a community base, a major TV station or anything like that where we get news being broadcast out of Northport. With the only news cycle we get is the news cycle of what happened in Northport. That's not the same. They love talking about that the referendum went down. There was no TV station that picked up why we should do it. So I don't want to blame city government for lack of participation, when clearly we have a lack of participation from a lot of citizens. And as citizens, we just have to acknowledge that that is true and then own it and do something about it. Am I off base with that?
No, you are correct in that regard that not a lot of people voted. That's for sure. By staying home or being, you know, don't care attitude is not correct. But you have to be involved, and being involved is showing up to vote. Um, that's for sure. That's for sure. But on the other side, I can take a blame personally for not educating enough people, at least on emergency funding question and transfer station, and wastewater treatment, because that's those three ones. Those three are really, really, I shall say, needy
Yeah,
projects.
they were.
Wastewater treatment. We're gonna get fined daily. I believe it's $1,000, $2,000 a day
Yeah.
if we don't do it. It's not a luxury; it's a need. Um,
And
and
that's not being summoned by you.
no, it's EPA.
Yeah.
It's Florida
A
Department of.
little higher up the food chain.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Well, yeah, we got a notification from them, so it's actually can be obtained by any citizen if they want. But yeah, I can take a blame for not educating enough um, uh, people about emergency, because from the November question it was failed, right? But and the message it was sent clearly, because if we separate emergency from the other components of that question, it would have been passed, but it didn't get passed. And you are correct. The citizens that did not come out to vote, they have no right to complain because they did not even participate in it.
Yeah, that I think that's the hardest pill to swallow, because it's one of the first questions I ask when I hear somebody bitching about what's happening is, did you vote? Now, if you voted no against all of it and things still happen, you still voted no and you participated. So you get the luxury of bitching about it. And that doesn't mean that you can complain and that you're right about how you voted if you don't clearly know how to battle it. And the battle isn't on all of these items. The battle isn't, I voted no, that's the way I want it. Okay. That is the responsible thing to do. Go vote. What's the solution for your vote? And the solution for your vote to be a different way might cost you more.
Yeah.
And that is if the mistrust is that strong, that you didn't trust yourself to do the responsible thing and ask questions. It's not like the platform's not here. It's not like you can't call your commissioner. It's not like you can't shoot an email out and get some definition on a question. Every single day as a commissioner, you're getting asked questions about less items, not less important, just less items. They're all important. Am I stating that correctly?
Oh yes, yes. And like I said before, I do respect, humbly respect the voters and the way they voted. But we still have to do things that needs to be done for the city. And uh, at the end of the day, it is a struggle. And a lot of people say there's a mistrust because there's no accountability. We don't want to do Dodge thing. I actually talked to the city manager numerous times about this Dodge process, or how do we do this? How do we engage it? As a city, we are open. but it has to be done by the direction from the governor's office. And we are as transparent as we can be with the governor's office, from what I was studied. And we're just waiting for another round of asks, whatever they come up. So the other thing is misuse of funds. From what I know, and I'll confirm that, we've been audited on a yearly basis by independent auditors. So I don't know who's going to be auditing or have been audited for the last years yet or not. But there's a level of accountability. I'm sure there's some problems like everybody else has. We've going through, we as a city, we are growing. That's one. The other thing is we've been restructuring a lot of departments. A lot of departments have been looked into. So we're not just sitting and accepting whatever it is. We, at least I can speak on my own behalf as a commissioner. I'm trying to do my job the way it has to be done, in my belief that we have to be accountable. Another misconception, I get to hear this over and over and over again, and it's so frustrating that we are pocketing money from developers. We being paid under table. We do as commissioners, we have to take annual ethics course once a year, and I took mine a few months ago, and we have to report any gift of $25 or more. So if somebody gives me a ticket to a baseball game and it costs more than $25, I have to report that. Not just the money, but equivalent to that amount of money. So nobody's paying me. Nobody's paying me under the table. I only voted once in favor of a developer, and that was Ecos Arbor. And it was not the actual, it was just a small variance that I voted for. And it was for senior community discounted or affordable housing, which, is really needed for our senior citizens to have affordable housing. And it was just a mixed use of commercial versus residential units. It was not actually voting for them to have affordable housing. They already got approved by the building code, but it was more of a mix, the percentages. And that's the only time I voted in favor for if you can say developer. But the misconception that we pocketing money, we stealing money, this is a nonsense, and it's just it's actually not healthy. And I had to say this publicly because I don't get any money. I don't meet developers who give me or offer me favors or swap things, or buy me vacations. That doesn't happen. I don't want to go to jail. That's one. And I don't want to do anything that's not for the benefit of the city. So,
well, I'm actually glad that you clarified that you're a good guy, and the fact that that same group of people that put the Doge and the Stephanies of the world, and she's going to love that I called her out, because I think they're BS. Because part of the problem with just throwing garbage to the wind is that you're casting doubt the minute you start doing that without some legitimacy behind it. So if we weren't doing audits and we weren't being forthcoming, then you might have some grounds to start doing it. But I don't see any of the posts that actually support anything. It's again, it is that negative tone being thrown out. It's the negative tone that you guys are taking all the money from the developers. You're in the pockets. It's all BS. Stop listening to people that are doing that, because all they're doing, it's the same group. It's the same groups of people. When you get involved with their group, they cast you out of it if you say anything against them. And there are a lot of people that are in that group that in every city has them. Every city has them. Federal government has them. It doesn't matter. It's not particular one city. Our city is not special with that group of individuals. We're just dealing with it because we're talking about local government. But when you continuously have citizenry that just throws doubt, and then something like the referendums don't pass, there is another reason that it doesn't, because some of those citizens, they get their tweets off of Facebook, and it gives people who don't have time an out because they saw a post. Well, that doesn't mean the post was right. If you believe the Doge post, we should have Doge here today. For what reason? What audit didn't pass? It like you said, it doesn't make, like, logically, it doesn't make any sense. And you should not, as a commissioner, as a brand new commissioner, I appreciate the fact that you clarified, but you shouldn't have to clarify that at all. That's if people did the work and understood the rules and understood the harm that they can cause the city themselves, and on a legal side of things, the ramifications that would come from that. I can't believe that we're having to talk about those things, about Doge. Citizens, get educated. Learn that just because you see a post, investigate it, because guess what? We're on this show once a month. I have commissioners on. I have the city manager on once a month. I have the city staff on once a month. We talk about the transfer station, public works. We talk about all these things. And let me tell you, those same people that throw stones, they don't participate on this. They don't. There's not questions. There's not comments. They have no reason to watch this because their minds have been made up. It's all negative. And it's an easy place to be in life. Being on the negative side of everything means you're going to win a lot. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. It means that we didn't pass the votes, and there are repercussions that have to be adjusted for because some of them failed. And now that, not the money, not the builders, not all the money that you're getting from all of them, that shouldn't be what we're talking about. We should be talking about how much money is it going to cost the citizens to have a correction action on the vote? Because that's the real question. What is coming at us that you have to do as a commissioner, and the work you have to put in to figure it out? That's the question, isn't it?
Yes, and I do believe that is going to be to some extent painful. And I don't want to say anything negative about anybody else. I knew that police station would be probably tough to swallow because it's over 100 million. I always thought the sweet spot was 85, and a more appropriate would be surtax as opposed to the raising taxes. But it is what it is, and if it's been presented, and if people voted no, it's no. And I think I could foresee that. And I actually told, and I met with the different people. I've studied the subject. I mean, technically speaking, it's a lot of money. But as we had a school board presentation of our county, they're going to be renovating Northport High, and they came at 88 million. It was the first estimate, and it's just to renovate. And once they got to all the details, it went over $100 million. So the it's 101. I think they signed the contract for $101 million, and that's just to renovate. The police station was 115. It was turnkey. It was with equipment, with everything. The price wasn't bad, but the price tag to ask the voters seemed a bit high, and I knew it would be hard to swallow. So it was no surprise for me that it did not pass. But yes, we need the police station. It's better to have centralized, and it's better to have your own than to lease.
I talk about this, and we're over by about 10 minutes, so I apologize to you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. As long as it's okay to go on.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But we talk, and I do. I people think that I'm 100% supportive of everything the city does, and I'm gonna tell you that I'm not. Do I support the greatness within our city? Yes. Do I think the transfer station was a need? Yes. I think the transfer station was deserved to the citizens because the responsibility of Frank Lama and his crew is off the chain compared to any city in the state. And we're recognized for it. So to me, it's very disrespectful when you don't have enough knowledge on the base to vote no for something that is fiscally sound for what you as the citizen should rightfully embrace and brag about. Because go to any other city and look at their recycling programs. They're horrid. They're horrid compared to ours. We actually make money from that. We save costs. There are very few cities that actually can show a revenue from garbage. Think about that. A revenue from garbage.
Yes.
Who would have thought that? We
Yes.
do. And so that's the professionalism. That's the years of education. That's Frank Lama being the man and putting these things together, and Public Works doing their part as a management team to make us essentially one of the best in the city, in the state. In the state, maybe even the nation. And that's one facet. Police department is another. We've got Parks and Recs that are off the chain and certifications and trying to promote everything the right way. And then you've got the fire department who's wrapped their arms around this city, and we are stable across the board. And you knew all of this as a citizen, didn't you? Now you're educated one-on-ones, and with all of this team, all of this information, how valuable is it to learn more from them about the future and where it's going?
Yes, it's like I said, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge because I wish we have another election, but it's not happening till 2026.
It's a long time to go without.
Yes, and as you know, as an environmentally friendly guy, sometimes I take bottles that are empty. I don't throw them. It breaks my heart when people throw the plastic bottles into garbage. I take mine and bring it to the any facility that I can separate them.
Right.
So the transportation, some people said it's a premature project. We don't have a design yet. Well, the design is in works, but if we wait another 2 years, we lose money. But transfer station could bring us much, much more money than we even anticipated, because the surrounding municipalities could use us or could use our location. So yes, it is unfortunate, but it's the fact. We just have to live with that and see how we can fund it. And
Any of you rich Northport people, you want to cut a check and help pay for the transfer station, we'll do this one at a time. We'll just ask for the transfer station that actually would pay for itself over
yes,
a very short period of time.
or maybe, maybe we can have a private enterprise investment group that will invest it and get paid the interest as opposed to bonds, and this way we'll save money.
That's right.
But
Well, there's multiple ways of doing this, and I at the end of the day, figuring it out. The people who voted and voted with their heart and voted with knowledge, cool. The people who went into the booth and just voted downline because someone told you so, and you didn't know what you were voting for, you're the ones that we're targeting right now. And the reason you're being targeted is know what you're voting. I said this 8 years ago. Let's teach people to go vote. Then we'll teach them how to vote. We are in the stage of still teaching people to go vote. And that's evident by the lack of turnout. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the people who wanted it that didn't go vote,
they're gonna face the consequences of because the needs, and I feel it like I'm repeating myself many times. I feel that the people still think there's a need, but nevertheless they voted otherwise. And for those who did not vote at all, that's too bad. I don't know what to say.
If you didn't think there was a need, if your own household has no needs, year to year to year, think about that. No needs year to year to year. That means you're not adjusting. You're not getting yourself anything. There's no needs. They gave you a need based on good sound structure, and you turned it down. Now we have to find different solutions. And those solutions, when you ask the government to be straightforward, give us the truth, and then you give them the truth, and you have people who still say, yeah, but I don't trust them. Okay, well, at some point, Joe citizens got to wake up and realize that, are they asking me the truth? Are they giving me the truth? The only way to validate that, ask questions. Go get educated yourself. I realize that, and Robin's not wrong. Robin's not wrong. I've been a dad. I've been running all over town. I've been doing all those things. I sacrificed my time with my kids to volunteer back then. It's so much easier today. There's internet. There's all kinds of stuff. There's all the meetings are online at midnight when your kids are in bed. Spend 15 minutes and just listen to a video on the vote. There's too many short videos to have not been educated. Yes, they were around. Why? They were around. It's because of the funding source. It's telling you flat out why it was to our advantage to take advantage of the vote. That's like I struggle with this because I understand the magnitude of the question, and it is not how you voted. It's because you voted the way you did. What's the counter? There's an action and a reaction. The vote yes, the reaction would have been move forward, get these projects going. The vote no. What's the reaction? It just doesn't stop. It's the same thing with the citizen who walks around and says, we don't want our citizen to, or we don't want our city to change. We don't want it to grow. How did that affect the vote? Seriously, Robin, I'm not going to stop criticizing the citizens. It's not criticism when you're just trying to encourage them to wake up and get educated. If somebody takes it as criticism and they've educated like you have, It's not criticism. It's criticism when you don't spend an ounce of energy to get yourself educated, and then you walk around like it doesn't matter. And it does, because local affects local. I've learned that what happens to the federal government, it's like funding. That funding source, even you said it should be 6 to 12 months. It's not. It's really not 6 to 12 months. It's years and delays and years. So if we don't start, and I know Robin is active. I know that all the people that show up and vote, for the most part, they're active. We have 100,000 people closely in this town. Let's just say 50,000 of them are voting base. Even if you said 40, we still didn't have a good turnout. So it's not if we stop talking about how people voted and stop talking about why they didn't go vote. That's the problem. We didn't have a voting base that actually cared enough to go vote. And that's their responsibility. That's not the responsibility of the city. The citizens have to take responsibility for lack of effort. And that's a fact. And I'm not picking on anybody. It is a blatant fact that people need to get involved. And if the first thing is to go vote, there's something to be said about that, isn't there?
Sure.
And it's not, I don't want to put you on the spot, because I'm really not trying to be mean to people. I'm not trying to put them behind a criticism. I am taking personal responsibility to a different level and saying, you could have voted either way you wanted to, but you chose not to go vote. If you chose not to go vote, got to ask yourself why. And you got to ask yourself, what's going to happen now that I didn't vote? Because somebody else made up my mind for me. That's like the ultimate question. Are you, and right now, we're no different than when I moved here, because our numbers, while they've grown, our percentages on voters hasn't changed. Now, in an election year, we show up, but that's different. I agree with Robin. Advanced technology, things need to change. I agree 100% with her. That's why I love Robin, because Robin, again, thinking forward, it matters, because the digital voting, all the things that could be happening or should be happening and may in the very near future happen. We're and we're at 422 and we still have people listening, but where do you think, as a commissioner, where do you think your focus is going to be now on, let's just talk about the transfer station, because I think that one is the easiest out of all of them. It's the easiest one for the citizens. If you found a way to fund it, I think it's the easiest one to digest, because in a very short period of time, it would be paid for. That would be my target, because that's momentum in the right direction. We don't have momentum. We need a win. And that win would be, all right, let's show let's show them we'll get this done. Let's show them that we can get this done. And yes, we're going to take criticism because you voted no, but the actual fact is you voted no, and we got to find a way monetarily, fiscally, to stay the course. Not the bragging rights. The bragging rights are the success of all these things, but there is a fiscal side of it. Is that something that you're going to focus on? Is some of the wins that in a short time may be negative, but with the end result would be positive, because it's tested. Is that something that you would engage in?
Yes. Well, to be very honest, we did not have any discussion with the staff, either one-on-one or agenda briefing after the vote failed. But we were giving heads up that we're gonna visit each item individually, and we're gonna tackle in great length of how to fund these projects, which I see will be a challenge on every level. But I do believe we have to move forward, because it's like you said, those are the city's needs, and it's gonna be a challenge.
It is.
And something I was gonna say, kind of blank. I do believe it's worth to be put on the ballot again if we don't do anything before general election, but it's gonna be 2 years. So the cost of construction is rising astronomically. I mean, it's just out of control. And we can blame anybody for that. It would be a federal government, inflation, whatever. But the prices that keep going up. And what we could do that for 15 million is going to cost us 25 million.
Yep.
To do the transfer station. So there you go. That's your fiscal responsibility.
Well, I am going to stop right here, and there's a reason. I'm going to lose battery.
Oh, okay.
I've got that red light flashing. So I want to thank you for being part of the streaming, and I also want to thank the citizens for participating. Robin, thank you so much. Jackie, thanks for the likes. And we had lots of people in and out, but I appreciate that. Another comment, real quick. By the way, John, I like the changes on the broadcasting of the show. Thank you. I've been working really hard at it and trying to improve it along the way. So I appreciate you, Robin, and thank you so much for participating. And it's always a pleasure. But Dimitri, I enjoyed this conversation. And real quick, was it as painful as I told you it would be?
It was painless, almost.
Nice.
One thing I want to end with is on a positive note, that I'm open to build trust or rebuild the trust between any group of people or individually, or but I want to stress and point out, and I'm sorry if I'm taking your time and if your battery dies, but as a small contractor, as my second job, I do a lot of work and on an individual basis, and I don't like a lot of people, right? But I have to work with them. So if we don't like somebody, we still have to respect people. We have to be, treat others as we wanted to be treated. So, and that's my rule in life. I want to foster the, relationship with my constituents, at least, and I speak on my behalf. I don't speak on behalf of the entire board. That I want to rebuild or establish better communication channels of communication with people, and if they have any suggestions, practical suggestions, not just be accountable. That is so broad. I mean, just be more specific and email me or call me or text me. My phone number was displayed before. You can easily find my phone number on the city's website. I'm open to any suggestions and to improve our city's operations, whatever involves in my capacity. I'm on more legislature side, but I still have meetings with the city manager, and I speak with the deputy city manager. So in any way I can help, I'm open. So just reach out and be more proactive with your city, with our city.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.